Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Let's talk about the eclectic period. This is the period of art that we're in now. Eclectic period is my working title because I can't think of like a better term for what we're experiencing. But what we've seen is a breakdown of popular culture. So there's fewer things in the sphere of popular culture that are popular, and instead there's a few kind of like lightning rods of popularity that there's still some kind of overall cultural understanding. Like Taylor Swift is a person that makes music. No, I don't know any of her songs. I've never heard them. I couldn't sing one to you. Sabrina Carpenter did the Smell the Glove album, and that's what we're remembering this week. She did a Spinal Tap album cover, and I heard a clip of a song, and I just don't remember. I don't know anything else about her, right? Versus what we had of your Michael Jackson, where like even my grandma knew who Michael Jackson was and could probably sing you his songs, and he was culturally relevant throughout the entire culture of the West here. So that has broken down because of the internet into lots of little spheres, lots of little scenes. Scenes used to be very local. They were in physical places. You had, Florida death metal, and you had Seattle rock, which was alternative rock or grunge. You had LA thrash and Bay Area thrash, and you had NWO BHM, new wave of British heavy metal, this English heavy metal scene. And you had, the Gothenburg metal sound, right? So you had these physical scenes that produced artists that sounded similar to each other, and those would kind of gain traction and go overground. I haven't seen that happen really since 2000, not in any kind of significant way, whether it's like in rock or it's in pop or rap or something else like that. Like you had this East Coast rap style and West Coast. You just don't see that as much. What you have instead are kind of virtual scenes, virtual communities of people that are into like lo-fi hip hop maybe, or they're into ambient guitar, which is one of the things that I do. And it's just a little scene of people that make music by and for their scene, for each other, are interested in what the other people in that scene are doing, and are basically making things similar to that, but they're not physically located near each other. So that's a little bit different from how things were in the 20th century. But the main thing is that we're all in our own little area, in our own little subcultures, doing our own thing, and there's fewer and fewer people that are just in the mainstream experiencing popular culture. And it used to be the people in the little scenes still experience popular culture. Now you have people that are like, I'm into Swedish death metal. And it's like, well, have you heard of this big band? And they're like, I've never heard of them. I don't know, so yeah, we're into our thing, and we know that Taylor Swift exists, but we have never heard her music. That would just not have been possible in the 1980s. We would have been in our own little scene, maybe, but we would still be aware of the broader popular culture. Now it's a lot more fragmented. So this is why I call it the eclectic. Is like there's this and that and this and that and the other. There's a bunch of different little sounds and little scenes in music, little literary groups that are writing things kind of by and for each other, all in their own little ghettos, doing their own little ghettoized thing. By ghetto, I mean they're isolated from other groups. And that's what we're experiencing now in the 20th century, or the 21st century. So I don't know where this is going to evolve in the future. I don't know if these little pockets of virtual scenes, virtual communities, will create artists that are able to go overground big time. I don't know if we're going to see that. But I think in order for us to see what we saw before, there has to be mass media that's reaching everybody. It has to be something like the radio, where everybody's always turning on the radio. Most people don't listen to the radio. They choose to listen to Spotify, and their Spotify playlist, their Spotify experience is highly curated to their individual tastes. So it's unlikely that they would hear Taylor Swift unless they were already interested in Taylor Swift's songs or in pop that sounded like her brand of pop. You would be very unlikely to hear Taylor Swift. I know if I were to put on Spotify, it's going to play a bunch of video game music, and I'll never hear a pop song. That's just how it is, because the algorithm has been curated to my previous choices. So it's this, and it's the same thing with things like YouTube and things like that. The robot responds to what you already like by giving you more of what you already like. There's a big problem with that too, which is that exposure. We have this huge internet. We have the capacity to be exposed to almost anything. And how much of that almost anything are you actually exposed to on a regular basis? How many times do you end up accidentally hearing a flamenco piece? If you're not already into flamenco, I mean, right? Probably zero. How much Indian music have you heard? You're not into raga or sataraga? You're not into that? Oh, okay. How much Japanese music have you heard? Well, I've heard some J-pop. Maybe you're into J-pop. But if you're not into J-pop, you've heard nothing. You certainly don't know who Anthem is, right? Or any of these other, any other like Japanese artists that aren't J-pop. They're like, who's that? Are you into, do you know about this cultural music or that? Chances are you've been exposed to none of it, even though the internet has the ability to expose us to just about everything. Our individual experiences because of because of algorithms. I call it the robot. I just call it the robot. It doesn't really have a will. It's just, what do you want today, master? Well, I want more of what I already like. Well, here you go. Here's more of what you already like. And you just, give me the slop. I'm trying to make fun of you. This happens to me too, right? It's like, would you like some more game soundtrack slop? Yes, give me the sloppa. You don't get exposed to all of that other stuff. At least in the 90s, you might get some exposure to something that's kind of outside of that. Yeah, it'd be a corporation that's deciding to expose you to it, like ska, like that minute that ska was popular. But like, since ska was popular, how many of you have listened to ska? How many of you have accidentally heard ska? Like, someone happened to be listening to ska. Ska happened to come onto the playlist. Probably zero. Probably like no one, right? So that's the problem, right? Is that we're in our own little ghettos and just being fed everything. It's a major problem in the literary space, which is there's all of these little micro niche, micro genres that authors are actively trying to pursue. They're like, I want to find a group of people that aren't getting enough books, and I want to write a book for them because I want to sell a lot of books. This is the traditional indie publishing strategy. So maybe you identify like a little subgenre of, some kind of military sci-fi fantasy thing. You write a book that has all the tropes that they like, and then they're supposed to buy it. The problem is if you're in that little ghetto of like, I like military science fiction, and you read 20 military sci-fi books, and they're the same. It's just what you expected. Are you going to keep reading that? Or are you going to get bored? Right? How are you going to feel about those books? What are you going to want from those books? Are you going to be as excited about those books? You can like, man, I just am not excited about books anymore. Of course not. It's because you've read the same book 20 times. And so Amazon is going to curate what it shows you for books. It's going to be like, oh, you like this kind of fantasy? Here's 30 more books exactly like it. And authors actively try to write their books so that they're like other books because that's how you're supposed to sell books. And if you're doing anything that's outside of that, you find like, oh, it's really hard for me to find an audience because my book is not like other books, and it's very hard for me to connect my book to other books. I sold a lot of copies of Voices of the Void by saying it's aliens meets Lovecraft. And that was enough of a hook for that book to like really catch people like, well, I want to read that. That sounds cool. It's called Voices of the Void. You could find it down below. It's a good book. It's a really fun sci-fi horror book, right? How do I market, for me to market, King Leper, which is coming out. So technically, if you're the part of the Kickstarter, you got the limited edition, limited to 75 personalized copies, but you can buy it on July 25th in ebook form or the new blue edition for the physicals, hardback, and finally a paperback for you guys. How do I market this? Well, it's like Tolkien meets Game of Thrones. It's Game of Thrones meets Three Hearts, Three Lions. That sound interesting to you? Three Hearts, Three Lions meets Game of Thrones. It's not Portal Fantasy, though, like Three Hearts, Three Lions. But you got some fae folk. It'll be fun. You'll like it. Okay? But that's how I market it. Oh, here's two books that you may already know. Now, problem is that a lot of you, do people already know Three Hearts, Three Lions? They might not. So how do I get it? Okay. It's Tolkien meets Game of Thrones. It's Game of Thrones meets Tolkien meets Wheel of Time. It's closer to Poul Anderson. All right. It's Yeah. It's Poul Anderson meets George R. R. Martin. There's a way to do it. Okay, I have to connect it with things that you've already read. Is it like either one of those? No, it's really not. It's its own thing. I write with my own style. I have my own thing. But there are elements that you could say, oh, well, I could see how this is kind of like Game of Thrones. I could see how this is kind of like a Tolkien book. I can see how this is like Poul Anderson books. I can see how this is like Michael Moorcock books, right? Those sorts of things. So, check it out. Maybe that will pique your interest. That's not an inaccurate way to like describe the book or to sell it. But the problem is, if you're doing anything super original, it becomes harder to do it. Like I say, I operate in the ambient guitar world. It's not really ambient guitar. It's more like it's what it is. But that's the closest thing. So that's like the closest connection I can make is like, this is ambient guitar. This is ambient music. Not really. It's more, to me, it's impressionist, but I'm using techniques from ambient guitar, and I'm using techniques from jazz and things like that. So anyway, you can check out my music. The music channel is linked down below. No talking, just music. That's the problem. Is like, how do these little spheres, how do people not get bored? And how does something original through that cross-pollination arise out of that? If we're too ghettoized, there can be no crosstalk. So it's a lot harder to synthesize new ideas. If there's nothing crossing over, if there's no genre crossover at all, it's hard to synthesize new ideas at all. So anyway, leave me your thoughts down below about the eclectic period. Where do you think we're going to go here in the 21st century? We're 1/4 of the way through the 21st century, and I don't know where the culture is going to go artistically. I think it's a big mystery to me, but it'll be really interesting to see what happens. My thought is that this place that we're at is kind of an equilibrium that's going to get broken. It's going to get broken by something. My guess is boredom, and I already see it setting in with readers, and I see it setting in with a lot of people who are into music is they're just bored, right? I feel it with me. It's like I hear metal that's given to me by the robot, and I'm a metalhead, and I've always thought of myself as a metalhead, but it sounds the same as everything I've heard before, and I'm bored of it, and I want to hear something different. I still hear plenty of bands that are exciting to me. It's not that there's nothing exciting out there, but if I let the robot give me suggestions, I'm probably not going to hear anything that's really, really good. You know what I mean? I have to still like talk person to person. Oh, you like that band? Check this out. It's like, well, High on Fire is like, how would I describe High on Fire? High on Fire is like if Motorhead and, it's the guitars from Sleep. So I don't know. If Motorhead and Electric Wizard and Monster Magnet had a baby, to get High on Fire. So those little marketing terms seem really dumb, but like it's the easiest way to try to present people with something that's different. That's maybe it's the same but different. That's the hard part. Anyway, leave me your thoughts down below. I'll see you all next time. King Leopard comes out on July 25th. Buy it. You can get the blue edition of the book. This is the green edition. And I'll see you all next time.